waiting. Oh, that's a gonna be. That's a gonna waiting. And I know that sometimes we lose hope. We grow, unleash hope, but my soul has seen tears and free years. It gets hard, but broke hearts and no scars. And these parts don't make sorrow, but make hard in my mind. Waste time with these times. I'll be fine if I find a new kind of lifeline, and not blind to my mind, to my pain. But things change, I got the brain, forget the fame from the veins, look like the strain. That's all it takes when you're living in this world. No conception, sometimes you need to speak out. You need to breathe out, don't leave out, don't leave now. That's all it takes when you're living in this world. With no conception, sometimes you need to speak out.
She is whispered about, snickered at, and given some old stoic tone that lay dead in marble graves and tombs, and upon the lips of Athena. She could cry, but her stomach hurts when she thinks of becoming weak. She forgets to talk to herself, to search her own emotions. Her heart skips a beat when she is lied to, like there was love to be had there. She does not recognize their memories. She does not recognize their words. She doesn't remember that the whispers were for the shadows, and that meant it wasn't her life, or her ears. And still, she heard it. From the emptying bellies and the corners that held street life, the girl there in the smoke-stained mirror knows you. She's whispered about. Witnessing the open mouths of quiet boards whose own secrets stalled and turned into waves and empty beaches. And she, the girl, turns to meet the swollen tides with chest and eyes that lay covered and standing, statuesque and ancient. Understanding her own tears, she only moved away from the sun to listen to the music, and not the crowds, which had started to gather and ink with their own notes. It all could be poetic if no one had forgotten the beauty inside that mirror, or the girl that had made them stick their toes in the coldness and the sand. Hanging out from all this once frick, thrice frack, speaking dead words that even the Latin never knew. And the newness had begun to rot and tear up, her eyes burning with old dead things. Words, they're just words. 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 Firmaments, politicians, and mothers. What happens when the act of gossiping collides with facts? It's a given that facts are subjective, but why culturally is gossip considered to be a toxic trait? A toxic trait in girls, more specifically? And in considering that, biased obstruction. Where in fact does the gossip end and the facts begin in any situation? It is certainly true that mere gossiping can become toxic, but consider this. There are many wars that came forth because of it. Facts. Historically, we could consider the obvious. Everything comes from hearsay. We trust what we consider safe. We honor what we consider familiar. We love who we feel deserves it. And we are persuaded by the ethos in our bellies. Let us now consider the art of persuasion here. One of the biggest tenets of that art is the use of pathos and ethos. Yes, it is art. Logos, knowledge, or common fact presented within the intent of persuading is rarely persuasive. People generally just don't want to hear it. These tenets, belong to names that are considered the builders of the Western world. This world. Plato, namely, Aristotle, namely, Socrates, infamously. These men who studied at the feet of Africa. The irony in all of this isn't lost in translation, believe me. Now, if we are to consider mere gossip in those parameters, then we must consider those parameters biases. How the hell did gossip become a bias towards women in the first place? Stay with me here. Now, historically, women were the victims of a very large debate about the discussion of the soul, purity. Thus, this means that women and girls are stigmatized by history itself, by the very free-thinking men who shaped American government, the act of politicking, and then, yes, the folly of playground bannering. In short, we didn't stand a chance against the propaganda. Folly. Now, with all this being said, and in my mind true, I'm going to go back to my previous statement here. Consider the obvious. Everything comes from hearsay. We trust what we consider safe. We honor what we consider familiar. We love who we feel deserves it. And we are persuaded by the ethos in our bellies. Hell, this has now become a broader conversation. Because now what you see is how gossip, emotions, and words translate within generations. And if you don't, take this particular point in history. Forward, the Salem witch trials. These trials were surrounded not only by superstition, but by religion. The two had met so greatly that there really wasn't a difference once it left layman tongues, or the elites. A bit of homemade fear for your soul, if you will. And the other obvious and stigmatizing act or state of existence, that age-old debate about the existence and or purity of women and girls. These women were massacred, let's not mince words about it. They were murdered legislatively, first in whispers, then in courtyards, lastly in the courtrooms. And Salem was not the beginning. If we delve into the holy wars, what we find is both men and women positioning themselves in manners that made violence look like peace. There were witch hunts then too. People died even from the whisper, the gossip of it then too. Witchery is heresy. Heresy is conjecture, subjective. A God does not make explanation for violence or whispers for projected edicts. Fear can be overwhelming, attractive, seductive, just like power. Humans are naturally attracted to the familiar, and demonization is rife with the stench of it. Fear can be overwhelming. Gossip is not just about women. Although granted we do it well, very well, we are not the only motherfuckers who are good at it. It's up to you how you want to take that, how you carry it with you. We're not our social condition. There will always be another different whisper in our ears. Women will always be lied about in my lifetime. The wound is that invisible. A hemorrhage. And it is bleeding out, turning purple with the ache. We saw that with Time Is Up. We see this now with the Iranian women activists in 2022. This is not a battle. This war lies in shadows and in the light. Perhaps the question should be put to the men who said it was their world in the first place. And the question is this: how important is purity to you in the first place? We live in a world where God is put to a concept, conceptualized and put into a box called religion or demonization. called deity, a lord, called peace and war, called heresy and crucifixion, in crucifixion, and women, called lover or whore, called Bathsheba or Jezebel, called Mary or Magdalene. And if she is called pure, she is already dead, twofold. No one knows Hatshepsut or Nefertiti. They only praise the same God. They only deny their names twice. They only sold you, women, sex, and made it so we, women, would have to follow suit. Fear, political, and complicated, and conditioned. I'm a woman too. I was given that double-edged sword too. I'm the subject of gossip too. So I know exactly what all women go through. This particular matter is only hued with racial matters because sexism is genderless. So is it really power? Wielding and finite? Or is it the power of the P-U-S-S? You know the rest. And that wound that had turned purple with it, is it really so invisible that any woman is subject to the mirror of the world without that woman with the cloth for eyes? Without the justice? These are very real questions that each generation has been given because the historical traumas have not yet been addressed. The acts of generations before us or the ones before that. The problem is conjecture, subjectivity, objectification. The moment that you talk about reality while living within it, you are becoming the engineer and the subject to gossip. That's how it works. That's how it hurts. Reality and truth are two very different things. I can tell you my truth, but you can't tell me what God thinks of it. You can tell me how you feel, but you can't make me feel like you. Individualism. Even history is corrupted by opinions. The motive of that is always with lust. Lust for power, for love, for sex, and lust for money. Hell, power could be considered or defined as sex, love, money, and fear. Power itself. And that is why gossip is considered to be toxic. But it, like sexism, is also genderless. We could come to recognize this part of reality as common knowledge, but people fear what they don't know. But, ironically, there's this thing about fear. It brings the fight right to the mountain. A hemorrhage, a war, a superstition, a final place for justice. And to think, women could actually come together by merely gossiping about the truth, about the truth, about the truth.
Don't leave now, and I give them hell now. She won't do well now, so why compare now? Yeah, yeah. And I give them hell now, she won't do well now, why compare now? Yeah, oh, yeah. You just need to breathe. You just need to breathe. You just need to breathe. Ain't no in between. Oh, that's up on me. And I give them hell now. It was like a shame. She won't do well now. Come from my blood. So why compare now? Yeah. Niggas dead. And I give them hell. Yeah. Just in a shame. Oh, yeah. And I give them hell. That's all it takes when you're living in this world with no conception.